I have a theory about the new Vecna Eve of Ruin book. GameMasters here, and we know from history that Vecna had a right-hand man, so to speak, named Cass, who was once a paladin of Tysharon, but that he forsake his oaths and found a thirst for blood and battle. This caught the attention of Vecna, and over time Cass would serve the Lich, even having a sword crafted up to help him vanquish the various enemies that Vecna had. After years of service, Vecna, according to some lore, transformed Cass into a vampire. Vecna continued to task Cass to enforce his rule, but Vecna became more and more absent as he began to focus on becoming a god. During all of this, the sword of Cass became sentient, or perhaps it had been all along, but we do know that it began to whisper to Cass that he himself could become more powerful than Vecna, that all he had to do was destroy the Lich, and thus Cass sought out Vecna to destroy him. Now, there is more to that history, but that's the basics of Cass, a once paladin that fell from grace and then began to serve Vecna, only to turn on his master. But the key element here is that Cass was once a paladin and that he turned on his former master. And here's where my theory really kicks in. What if having the employ of a fallen paladin has been the key to Vecna's plan since the beginning? We know that Cass won't work, as Vecna cannot trust him, but what if there is another fallen paladin that also turned on their former master? We know that Lord Soth will be in the new Vecna book, and now my theory here, it is contingent upon a couple of things, but we know that in lore, apart from the books, apart from 5th edition rather, that Takhisis had Lord Soth in her employ, that he was more or less her servant, and he was at one time a paladin that also fell from grace. A brief history summed up. Takhisis had her armies march across Krynn, destroying it as they went. Lord Soth had been accused of murdering his wife and stood by watching his second wife and child die, and in her dying breath, she cursed Lord Soth to become a Death Knight. He didn't save her, so she cursed him. He became tormented by ghosts that would remind him of his losses for hundreds of years. This is when Takhisis found him. He would fight for her, help destroy countless towns, became her servant, much as Cass became Vecna's. Eventually, Lord Soth's evil deeds would catch up to him, and he was cast into Ravenloft. While in this domain of dread, he was tormented by his past, but he began to reflect upon his life and came to the understanding that he was supposed to suffer for his evil deeds. He accepted that fate of torment, feeling that it was what he deserved. And it is at that point that the mists of Ravenloft kicked him out, released him back into Krynn. Takhisis found him, approached Lord Soth once again, and asked him if he would serve her. But in all of his time in Ravenloft, he had recognized the evils that he had done in the name of Takhisis, and he refused her. She in turn restored Lord Soth to being mortal and killed him. With his dying breath, he vowed to seek out his wife and son in the afterlife. Full stop. Again, this is all based on information outside of 5th edition, mainly the novels, but hear me out. I theorize that Vecna, who has control over the dead, has sought out Lord Soth. Again, we know he appears in the Vecna Eve of Ruin book, and because Vecna has seen someone fall from grace before, he recognizes the hatred that Cass has for him. Perhaps he also sees that Lord Soth has the same hatred for Takhisis and can use that to his own advantage to get Lord Soth to work for him. Perhaps Vecna has promised to Lord Soth a way to be reunited with his wife and son. That all Soth has to do is help take down the entity that caused his suffering, Takhisis. Perhaps Takhisis stands in Vecna's way. Simply put, what if Vecna, with his mastery over the dead, deliberately sought out Lord Soth for his own schemes? It's plausible that Vecna recognized in Soth a kindred spirit, one who had also fallen from grace and harbored a deep-seated hatred towards his former master. Just as Cass turned on Vecna, perhaps Vecna perceives an opportunity to manipulate Soth, his animosity towards Takhisis, for Vecna's own ends. By offering the Soth a chance at vengeance against Takhisis, Vecna could have gained a powerful ally in his quest for destruction across the multiverse. This alignment of mutual interests, fueled by Vecna's understanding of what drove the fallen paladin, could form a pivotal plot point in the upcoming Vecna Eve of Ruin book. Again, it's a theory. I feel that it adds layers of depth to both Vecna's cunning and the extent that he will go to unravel the multiverse, but it does leave me with a burning question. What abilities from a fallen paladin could Vecna make use of? Let me know your theory on that down in the comments, and until next our paths cross, may you not fall from grace.